Hey guys, Saf here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Now, if you've seen the most recent news, you'll be aware that there is a new set of progress missions coming, which will give you a brand new champion called Marius the Gallant. He's a very powerful A1 and one of the few champions in the game that currently can place Enfeeble. Now, we've had it with Panda. Panda could do it, but couldn't apply to bosses. And then more recently, we've had Androc, who is a Mythical Banner-lord, and he could apply it to everyone. And he's kind of going under the radar a little bit. I actually think Androc is the best champion in the game overall, based on his A2 ability. And what I want to do in this video is actually show you why Enfeeble is so powerful, because it's kind of relevant to the whole power curve of Marius as well, whether or not Marius is worth it. Now, we don't actually know the details in terms of how difficult these progress missions are going to be, how much time is it going to take us to get them? I do know that a majority of people haven't got Romantu still, so obviously by that factor and that indicator, he's probably going to be harder to get than Romantu, which obviously makes it a little bit like the High Mother Maud situation where it doesn't matter how good the champion is, if you can't get it, who cares? But what I want to do today in this video is explain to you the exact mechanics of how Enfeeble is working and why actually Enfeeble in the right situations is quite incredibly powerful. It's very, very, very strong. Currently, the only other champion in the game that can apply an Enfeeble apart from the Panda is Androc the Glorious on his alternate form. This Palisade Breaker will attack all enemies, it will place a decreased resistance, a weaken, and an Enfeeble debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. If enemies have 50% or less, the Enfeeble debuff cannot be removed. So what does Enfeeble do? We can have a look at the description here. This is quite handy though that they've added these, so it's a quick and easy way for you to have a look to see exactly what is going on. You can see that Enfeeble, all the way down at the bottom here, because it's a relatively new debuff, champions under Enfeeble debuff can only land weak hits, unless stated otherwise in the skill description. So this is kind of like the reverse of that Poison Cloud effect. Poison Cloud's the buff that makes you weak hit. This is the debuff that makes you weak hit. If I'm currently attacking an enemy and I'm under Enfeeble, I have no chance to normal hit or critically hit. Now, why is that so important? Well, if you weak hit, you can't apply your status effects, right? You can't apply things like poisons, stuns, turn meter control. Some abilities that kind of apply those before you attack will absolutely work fine. And obviously, if you're not attacking, you can't weak hit. So therefore, it doesn't matter. You'll still apply your effects. But certainly, for example, let's assume Androc here was under Enfeeble debuff. Attacks one enemy has a 50% chance of placing decreased defense on all enemies. If this was a normal attack under Enfeeble, he would weak hit, therefore he can't apply the decreased defense. And this applies for any attack that does some form of debuff. For example, here, he will not be able to reapply the Enfeeble debuff if he himself is under Enfeeble debuff. Now with Androc, this is even more powerful than Marius. Marius is going to do it on an A1, on a 50% chance, on a 1-turn cooldown. Androc is going to do it on a 3-turn cooldown, but it's going to be 100% chance on for 2 turns, and if they're below 50% HP, you can't even remove it. This is why I think Androc personally is the best champion in the game right now, because he applies all these effects on top of weaken, on top of AoE decreased defense. So you get an AoE decreased defense, AoE weaken. You're also getting AoE decreased resistance, which makes your accuracy numbers easy to get. You get an Enfeeble, which basically stops the boss mechanics. You also get the ability to remove all buffs from all enemies. You deal damage based on the quantity of buffs you remove. You then place block buffs, makes them amazing for Hydra. All at the same time, if you critically hit on all of your allies, you will also reduce the turn meter of all enemies by 5%. He, in my opinion, is the most crazy OP champion in this game right now. If you have him, you have beaten the game. There is nothing that the game can throw at you that this guy doesn't just immediately make trivial. That is just the state of his gameplay. Now let me show you some examples and some nuances and some things that we've worked out from Androc. I personally don't have Androc, but I know a couple of my Discord followers and my community who've got Androc and they absolutely love him. I haven't really done a video on him yet because I wanted to see where the direction was going to go. Now the obvious thing that you would assume is, well, Enfeeble is like a crowd control stun type effect. It doesn't work on bosses. Not true. Now, I don't know whether this isn't by design, whether this is intentional, or whether they've just accidentally forgotten about it. But currently, Enfeeble will apply on any opponent, including bosses. So you can see here in this screenshot, we've actually applied Enfeeble from Androc. He has been able to apply it on his A2. You'll also notice it's a 3-turn cooldown. 3-turn duration of the debuff. This actually works with Master Hexer as well. So not only do you get a 2-turn, you can Master Hexer extend it to a 3-turn. If it becomes in a protected state, you can no longer extend it via other forms. Like Master Hexer will extend it, but you can't extend it by something like Vizier. It seems to go into a protection mode where it's no longer extendable. But in terms of this debuff here, as long as it's not protected, this can be permanently extended on a boss. Now let me just give you some examples of where this actually makes sense. The clan boss will try to stun you every 3 turns. When he's under Enfeeble, he cannot stun you. The clan boss will apply decreased speed on you. When he's under Enfeeble, he cannot apply decreased speed. You don't have to worry about affinity speed tuning. When you're fighting the dragon boss, you don't have to worry about poisons. You don't have to worry about the stun effect. When you're fighting the queen in Spider, you don't have to worry about being put to sleep anymore. That can't work. The Spiderlings can't place a poison on you. That doesn't work anymore. When the Fire Knight attacks you, he's not going to do any damage to you because he's weak hitting. He can't apply the decreased speed debuffs. Those are removed. When you're fighting Ice Golem, you can't get frozen. Do you see what I mean about how powerful and crazy Enfeeble becomes? You start listing out all the different mechanics. Amius cannot critically hit you on his A1. The only boss this doesn't work for is the Shogun, because he is immune to Enfeeble debuff. He's the only boss in the game that is actually coded like this. But certainly like Sand Devil, if you can sleep him and put Enfeeble on him, he will cleanse it, because obviously he cleanses debuffs, but the first hit that he does will not kill you if you keep that Enfeeble on you, because he can't critically hit. When we go into Doom Tower, Sarath cannot freeze you. Iragoth can't put your skills on cooldown. Agreth can't put poisons on you, although maybe they can, because I don't know about Agreth, because I know you can't resist them, but resist is different from a weak hit chance. It may still work, it may not. That one might be a bit of a grey area. But certainly things like Grithian can't steal your buffs because he will weak hit. These list of different elements and different things that are happening. If you take him into Sintranos, he's going to make everything trivial. This guy defeats the game. You know, when you put him into Hydra, for example, you don't get any poisons anymore. The Mischief Head can't steal the buffs off you anymore because he's under Enfeeble debuff. He can't do that. Things like Provoke cannot happen. The Fear Head will still happen because when you attack him, you're applying fear, he's not attacking you. So the fear will not be resolved, but the individual A1 fear won't happen because he will weak hit. Things like the heal reduction will not apply from the Head of Decay. He will weak hit. And all of these different things that we have to deal with, you just don't have to deal with anymore. So not only does it work on bosses, Master Hexer will extend it, and it defeats the element of the bosses here. Here's an example what I mean in Hydra. All of these heads are currently enfeebled. There is nothing they can do anymore. There is just nothing they can do. They can't dump poisons. Obviously, if they're not attacking, they can still put the poison cloud out. You still need a solution for that. Obviously, Androc here would be crazy because he brings block buffs. Really, really OP. But things like the Provoke and the Weaken from the Suffering Head, that can't happen. The Mischief Head stealing. The Wrath Head came out. He wouldn't be able to one-shot you because he will weak hit. It doesn't matter how strong he is. It's not going to matter. He's going to weak hit you and you're not going to die from a weak hit. So it absolutely works in Hydra as well. And again, just to reiterate here, just an example that you can extend it as well in Hydra. Now, there is an exception to the rule. Obviously, Bambus, Four-Leaf, the Panda, as I like to call him, he is not going to be able to do it because he can place Enfeeble, but he cannot do it to bosses. So this is where we assumed that Enfeeble just wouldn't work on bosses. They actually coded this to be immune within the skill. So when he uses this particular skill, it doesn't work on bosses. But the Enfeeble debuff itself is not excluded currently. Now, whether or not by the time this new champion comes out, it looks like it's coming in the next patch, this changes. It could potentially change. It could be that they decide that, no, Enfeeble's too strong. We're going to make it one of the listed sort of debuffs that don't work on bosses. If that happens, it dramatically devalues this new Marius the Gallant, in my opinion. I don't really think his A2 is all that special. That's what Timid already does. There's a bunch of other champions that do it. There are epic champions that do that now on a very good sort of rate and number of turns. It's very good, but it's not the end of the world. And the A3 is just increased accuracy and increased defense. Now, you do get a stun with it, which is okay, but it's only a single target one. You get an extra turn, which is nice. He is immune to turn meter controls, which is good, decent, I guess, but not necessarily the most craziest thing. So if that Enfeeble concept doesn't work on bosses, then from a PvE point of view, it's not that powerful, Marius the Gallant. In terms of arena, I don't think this new champion is anywhere near good for top end arena. And by the time you actually get him, that's what you're going to be really looking at, because it's going to be very difficult to acquire this champion, because we all know how difficult Romantu is to acquire. And Romantu doesn't even make it into the top end arena because of debuffs. He's going to get polymorphed. Every time you attempt to turn me to control the new progress mission champion, he will counterattack. Well, if he applies Enfeeble, he's just going to be polymorphed quicker than you can even blink. So at a high end arena, it's not very valuable. So this is my concern if they change Enfeeble. They have to leave Enfeeble there, otherwise he's not that good, because it's not a guaranteed chance. It's only a 1-turn cooldown, and the rest of his abilities are replaceable by champions that you can pick up in epics, right? This is a progress mission exclusive. It's going to be very difficult to get. He has to do something unique. Like Ramantu is the only champion in the game that can do AoE block passive skills. Pretty sure he's still the only one that can do it on an AoE. There's single target options. He's the only one that can go remove all buffs, block passive skills. That's alongside his A1, which is quite powerful, and his A2 in terms of like all those debuffs he brings. So he's actually quite good for that. But he is unique, which is what means he keeps his place. Like we can have a look at him here in the list. Ability here, this is very unique. Remove all buffs and place block passive skills. We get 4 debuffs here: decrease defense, weaken, decrease speed, block buffs, everything you could potentially want on a single target. And then an A1, which actually helps you reduce skill cooldown. So he's very powerful, but totally useless in the high-end arena, specifically like the top, like goal 4 live arena, you know, top 500, because you're never going to be able to not get sheeped by this ability. Even if you like, even if they're not fully 5-star, the chance of you getting polymorphed with 4 enemies under polymorph is like 40%. It's very high. So you're just never going to find a use for him. And if the other guy can't, you know, the other guy's going to be more susceptible, Marius, because he's going to be doing debuffs on an A1. At least this guy only does a stun when he's reduced all the cooldowns, which is very rare, and it's not a 100% chance. So you can at least avoid the A1, but if he's constantly A1ing, you can just force Marius into a sheep form, and then he's just a bot. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But that, I just wanted to do a video today explaining why I personally think Androc is the best champion in the game, because of this one ability, paired with the fact that he's got AoE decreased defense as well as AoE weaken. Even on his base form, he's kind of insane. He has an AoE increased defense on all allies. Just places increased defense on everyone on an A1, which is insane. He has a buff extension, a heal. He's got increased resistance, strengthen, continuous heals. Every time you get critically hit, you increase your turn meter. He is an absolute monster of a champion. I think he's the best in the game right now. I do. I think he just makes the content of the game. If you pull him, it's so easy to beat this game. Every content you're going to have is so easy to beat. The only thing he doesn't help you in is Shogun Grove. But I wanted to give you a video explaining how Enfeeble works, so that when you're looking at this new Marius that everyone is going to be talking about, you can make a sort of informed judgment that you know exactly what Enfeeble is doing. It will force the enemy to weak hit, which means it can't apply its effects, that's really the power pick. Not so much the damage, it's the fact that you don't get everything after. One last thing I want to finish in this video, one cool thing that I think could happen. When you're in the dragon boss, the dragon's passive will deplete your turn meter when he goes into breath form, right? When he starts charging up and you've got to break his barrier before he takes a turn, otherwise you're going to get stunned. Well, the new Marius the Gallant, the new progress mission champion, cannot have his turn meter reduced, but when you attempt to, he counterattacks with his A1, which means he enfeebles. So a very cool sort of setup you could have here is when the boss goes into his stun form, see it fully depletes the turn meters when he does his draconic gaze. That will then trigger a counterattack, which means you can enfeeble the boss whilst he's in his breath form, which means when he comes out of his breath form, even if you haven't breached the sort of barrier, even if you haven't done that, then you will not get stunned. You will not receive poisons. You will not receive weaken. It's an incredibly powerful counter to Dragon, but I just fear you kind of want it as you're progressing. I just don't know if you're going to be able to get it. And at this point, do you still need it? Like, I would not put it in my team, because why do I need it? I don't care if the Dragon stuns me, because Stultus is just going to kill it with its reflection and stuff like that. So, and if anything, I want him not to weak hit, so it would almost be a counter to my strategy here. But that's kind of a cool setup you can do. These are the sort of things you can do with Enfeeble. It's very powerful. Let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you think about this? Do you subscribe to the same things that I do, that Androc is incredibly powerful? Maybe you have Androc yourself and you haven't used him yet because you didn't realize how strong it is, or maybe you are using him. Maybe you can share your experiences and your opinions on him. I think this new guy could be quite good, so long as they don't add Enfeeble to the list of excluded debuffs from the boss passes, right? If you can't Enfeeble a boss, his value goes down a lot across the board, in my opinion. But if we can, then he's a very powerful champion, could be very good, specifically if he's in an Amius rotation. I know a lot of people have you struggling with that. Now, if you want to see some competitive PvP, I've talked a little about PvP today. I will be live streaming my Narcissus and Ancora builds, and we're going to be doing a lot of live arena. I've got tons of refills from 3 months of Cintranos, so we're going to be doing some live arena, seeing how the new King and Queen operates. Hopefully, we're not going to get permanently banned. You'll never know, it might happen, but we'll see how it works with the new setup now that I've got them built and mastered and we've been able to book them up, so it'll be quite fun. You can catch that on YouTube around about 8 p.m. tonight, UK time, UTC, that's Universal Time. Come hang out. It's on this channel. I'll put a link at the end of this video so you can come and click and save that link and then join if you want to hang out. But if you have any other questions as well at the time, we do a lot of Q&A, and we probably will be doing a bit of Hydra rebuilding because obviously Live Arena is only open for 2 hours. When it's closed, we will probably do a bunch of Hydra regearing. So let's see how that goes. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I will catch you in the next video.